Hi, I'm Julie.
And I'm Caleb. Welcome to Nursing You, the podcast where we redefine nursing in today's healthcare landscape. Join Julie and I as we step outside the box on an unconventional healing journey.
Together, we're diving deep into the heart of nursing, exploring the intricate relationships between caregivers and patients with sincerity and depth.
Our mission is to create an open and collaborative experience where learning is expansive and fun.
From the psychological impacts of nursing to the larger implications on the healthcare system, we're sparking conversations that lead to healing and innovation.
We have serious experience and we won't pull our punches, but we'll also weave in some humor along the way because we all know laughter is often the best medicine.
It is. And we won't shy away from any topic, taboo or not. From violence and drugs to family and love, we're tackling it all.
Our nursing knowledge is our base, but we will be bringing insights from philosophy, religion, science, and art to deepen our understanding of the human experience.
So whether you're a nurse, a healthcare professional, or just someone curious about the world of caregiving, this podcast is for you.
One last thing, a quick disclaimer before we dive in. While we're both registered nurses, nothing we discuss here should be taken as medical advice. Always consult with your doctor or a qualified healthcare provider for any medical concerns you may have. The views expressed here are our own and don't necessarily reflect those of our employers or licensing bodies.
So let's get started on this journey together. Welcome to Nursing You, where every conversation leads to a healthier world. All right. We just did a breathing session, so we're both feeling wonderful, kind of like we could take a nap.
Yeah.
Even though we just woke up. But that's how it leaves you, that brain and that oxygen and the chance to surrender is the word I always feel when you're just surrendering to the breath and the way that your body takes that breath. And it's a chemical reaction. It just is. So if you haven't tried breathing or some kind of breathing method, well worth it. So this week and for the next couple weeks, I think through January, we felt like maybe we wanted to talk about the future of nursing and what that brings. And we're not talking about, what the next pizza party is going to be, or, last week we talked a little bit about AI. And, I think as we do organically, conversations just morph into a lot of our ideas about what we currently do and how we are changing. We internally are changing for the future. And sometimes looking at healthcare, at the industry, at what we do, at what we're a part of, feels ginormous and gross to me sometimes that I'm like even a part of that. But nurses will always be needed. And so what is our role? What is the future of what we are going to be a part of? We at the bedside, the people who are taking care of the other people. And, I always go to what are the laws? Are they going to change the laws for staffing? Are we going to get help from above? Are we going to get help from outside? Are we, are we all going to be unionized? Are there things that play out like that for us? But there's so much out of controlness around that for me that I really have to just be grounded and come back to what can I do within me to perpetuate my future in the nursing field. That's kind of what I think about, in light of this particular podcast and our conversations is more kind of what do we do and where do our minds take us for the future, with the future of nursing and how it looks for us.
Yeah, that brings up quite a lot for me. Kind of before we go forward, actually, I'm gonna pull this book, pull out my book.
The big book.
The big book.
Say the title again for people who aren't watching.
The Enlightenment, The Pursuit of Happiness from 1680 to 1790 by Richie Robertson. And I haven't read the whole thing yet. Because it's that big.
Yeah, it's like 2.5 inches thick.
So this chapter, I've read it a couple of times. I read it, and there's just so much, and it's so densely packed that I have to go back I don't understand anything really hardly ever on the first pass. But the idea is the freedom from fear. That's what this little subtitle or subsection is. And what it's talking about is, I mean, this time period where, smallpox and scurvy and dropsy and all these diseases that left us mangled and crippled and disfigured, kind of cultivated a culture of fear. And it said, one of the things, I'm just going to read this little bit here. For all, but especially for the poor, infancy was a particularly dangerous time. It is estimated that in England, a third of children, and in France, half, died before the age of 5. Average life expectancy in 18th century England was 37. In France, before 1750, life expectancy among those who survived infancy was 40.25 years for men and 41.2 for women. Now, I could go on and read because there's so much other stuff in here, but just to kind of unpack the implications of just that little bit, as we've talked about so many times, suffering and death is largely siloed on the nurses and doctors. We've eradicated so many diseases that previously were so prevalent that it couldn't escape the psyche. Everyone experienced the suffering and death. And we have, I mean, it's just remarkable. I mean, this kind of goes into the thing that I was saying recently about dentistry. That's not it's not conspiratorial. Like, dentistry has saved more lives than any other form of medicine, I believe, because of infections. So we exist in a time where there's almost, I mean, we haven't eradicated death, obviously, but we have risen above so many of the illnesses that kept us pressed or kept us, everyone had trauma and loss in that time. Everyone, no one, like, it was just part of the thing. And so, part of the future, as we've talked about with hospice and that is kind of a pressure release valve for the inpatient setting that in the future we have to wrestle with, like, this idea that so many people died so young. Like, they didn't necessarily, I mean, yes, the suffering and the death, it was terrible and it was painful, but it was everyone sharing in it. And now we have almost transcended that experience with the medicines that we have. And
we keep everyone alive. We keep everyone alive as long as
we're propping everyone up on medicines, and eventually those medicines are going to fail because there's a necessary expiration date on DNA. It's just what it is. And so we have this massive population that is propped up artificially on these medicines, and how we navigate that is the prime thing that I think about when we talk about the future of medicine. Just grappling with it, wrestling it societally. We really need education societally on that. But beyond that, here's another thing that I recently heard, that if you're alive, this scientist, I don't know who it was, but this scientist projected that if you're alive 5 years from today, that science and technology is advancing at such a rapid rate that if you're alive 5 years from today, you will likely be alive in 200 years. Wow. That is such a radical statement.
Huge.
I wish that I had that quote. Who said that?
Yeah.
I don't, but I definitely, that is definitely what I heard. I would guess that nanotechnology is probably a big part of that, which is terrifying and also exciting. And I don't pretend to really have a great grasp on it, but I would imagine that's part of it. the other thing that I'll kind of go into a little bit of an educational mode in handing over the research that I've done on kind of what blockchain is, and kind of how I see Web3 playing out in the hospital. The blockchain is the answer to the insecurity that exists on our current web platform. The blockchain is a long format sequence of code that the first sequence takes you to this block, and then you have to have another long format code that encrypts to take you to the next block. And it's this massive long block of encryption that is going from one location to the next location, so that if you were a hacker, you would have to figure out the code for this block, and then figure out the code for this block, and then figure out the code for this block. So blockchain is a method of encryption that provides exponential layers of security to all of our online platforms that we currently have. And actually not on the current platforms. That's the other thing, is that the blockchain is being used to build out what they call Web3. I don't fully understand what Web3 is, but it's a whole nother world of internet, and it's being built on top of what we currently use now. And that world, as I understand it, that world is going to have a lot of augmentation, meaning the way that I see, like for instance, one of the ways that I see the hospital hiring process happening is that they will come through kind of like Google Maps does with their cars that drive around. They take pictures of every block and every house and every address. It'll be kind of like that. They'll set up a camera in a room. If let's just for you and I, for our conversation that we're having, we'll use the ICU that we worked in. You can imagine all the coworkers that we had. We would all record we would all have to go through and record ourselves giving a tour of the unit. These are the supplies. This is the supply room. This is where you'll get this. This is where you get that. And so the applicant that would be coming in would have a digital representation of themselves where they're like, wearing the goggles, the virtual reality or augmented reality goggles, and they're literally walking through the unit, and they get to walk up to whatever they can walk up to Julie and say, "Hi, Julie, my name's whatever. And I'd like you to give me a tour around the unit." She or he could pick whichever nurse. We've all done the process to do this thing. And there would be a virtual representation of our unit where any applicant could come in and literally interview us, which is that's just,
it is wild, but I think really necessary, because I don't think nurses do that often enough, and therefore then find themselves inside a unit with people who that's not really what they would have chosen,
Now this is my dream world. This is just how I have made sense of the information that I took in as I was researching what Web3 is and what blockchain is and what cryptocurrency is, because cryptocurrency is the thing that is being used to build out this new platform. And that's why it has value. That's where its value is. So a lot of like crypto coins, as I understand it, and I'm not a big crypto guy, I want to understand things, so I research. But a lot of the crypto coins, some of them are just like, I don't know, they call them meme coins. They have no value. They have nothing. They contribute nothing. And I think people take advantage of other people by, promoting it and then pumping it up and then taking all their money out and dumping it on everyone. Anyway, but some of the cryptocurrencies are actually, like, for instance, that long format code. If you wanted to have the Julie.com, and it's on a blockchain, and you've got all of these encrypted codes that you have to get to. And I think that each time you access it, those blocks change, so that you couldn't just keep working at it until you get it. I think it changes. Right. But the end destination, Julie.com, one of the crypto coins that I looked at, it provides the service of compressing that final block that is Julie.com. So it has a value within the ecosystem of blockchain. So that is like that, it derives its value by some contribution that it's making to this ecosystem that's being built. And this ecosystem that's being built, I mean, that's kind of on this, just in this conversation, the security that it provides enables. So the security that it provides enables us to have more confidence in technological developments. So one of the things that I personally think is terrifying are medical devices that could be hacked. That's a terrifying thought to me. An insulin pump could get hacked.
Anything. Because they program all those from the outside anyways already.
So that's a service or a medical technology that we have our minds wrapped around. When you get back to nanotechnology, like these little robots that they're using to build out healing modalities. If someone could get in there and recode those little robots, dead.
Yeah. Dead.
Yeah. What is that? That guy from that show? Oh my gosh! I'll try to find that clip. Maybe we'll post it. It's very funny.
It can be very intimidating, especially for nurses who really are quite simple in their care, and the things that we do during the day, during our 12-hour shift. That's passing the meds, giving the caretaking, the actual interaction between humans. To think of all of technology advancement, and it seems, well, kind of like what you first said, like it's scary. So it's fear a little bit.
Yeah.
And even fear of not understanding. So you don't really even do any research about it, and you don't really know, because it seems too big, that how and why would you even need to understand that?
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it kind of leaves me feeling, not at the, I don't have a say at the table. What is this going to bring for us? What does this mean for, the future of bedside nursing? Because there's so much that's unknown.
That's kind of one of the points that I'm driving towards, is that at the end of the day, personal accountability, like taking ownership of yourself. I mean, with taking ownership of yourself is that's where you started talking, or that's what I heard you say as you were kind of bringing us into this conversation. But to me, to me, that's it. With blockchain, I also think that we become, in some way, our own entities. That nurses, I do think that there's we need, systemic change has to happen. And one of the ways is, I think, that autonomy can be achieved through this.
Well, I think when you talk about autonomy in nursing, it really is. I mean, you have your orders, but you also have the capability of putting in whatever they want. It is illegal, but you actually can. And you actually can also choose whether you give your patients the right medications. I mean, it really is. You have to have so much integrity and honesty, and you have to feel the gravity of the autonomy that you have. Caring for those humans who are 100% relying on you to do your very best, and for you to have such high integrity that you would not do anything knowingly to jeopardize their care.
Right.
And so anything technology that would allow, nurses to feel more of that autonomy. And I feel like it is progressing between physicians and nurses. At least that's my experience, but back in the day, it was like nurses were stupid and the doctors only knew, and the nurse is just stupid. Even when I was working in, back, I don't know, even just say early 2000s, the way the ER or the way the physician would speak to the nurses on the floor who had the 6 patients, and maybe they didn't know all the dynamics of kidney function or the relationship between a low blood pressure and kidney function. That's not they don't need to know the insides and outs of that. Like they have a lot they're doing and but because of that, they would speak differently to the med-surg nurses versus like an intensive care unit nurse who spoke more at their level of knowledge. I don't know. I don't truly experience that anymore. Not to say that it doesn't go on, but I feel like nurses have been able to elevate their knowledge base, and through technology, if you want to say, or just evolution of the nursing process and how things have to be done in the hospitals, we have been allowed to be a lot more autonomous, and having an open mind and letting new technologies and new ways of doing things is not many nurses have a lot of trouble with that, with change and changing charting and doing things different. I mean, one thing you will always have, especially in an inpatient system, is change. They're always changing it.
Always. Yeah.
And, sometimes the change doesn't feel like the best thing to do. It doesn't feel like it would make a positive change in the way that we care for patients or even the outcomes of patients. But overall, it's necessary and usually for the good or betterment of the care given or for the patient outcomes. And so I don't think about technology a lot and the way that it's may change the way that I actually nurse.
See, I think it's going to radically change how we nurse.
Yeah, it's something I really have never thought about, really. I mean, it's almost like imagination. It's,
you definitely have to be able to dream about it.
Yeah.
I mean, I just think, I mean, we've talked about waveforms in the past, I think waveform technology is absolutely the future of medicine. I don't think there's any way around that. As far as we've gotten, there is like the model of pharmaceuticals is outdated. It's archaic. I just know that, many times our job is to read biological waveforms, whether it's heartbeat or respiratory rate. These are all, I mean, you could think of them as paradoxes: breathing in, breathing out.
Yeah.
Lub and dub.
Yeah. Yeah.
All of it. It's just the wave of life. And we're, sound waves, light waves, all of these different waveforms that inform. It's almost like some creative force is speaking it into existence.
Well, I mean, if you look at any kind of quantum physics and you even just a simple view of it is everything is energy. Everything is particles, either in motion, or you look at it and now it's just particles. So you either have the waveform and it's flow, or it's particles and it's solid. Like everything is that. And as people start to understand that with your thoughts and with the energy of those thoughts, that's how we change. That's how our reality changes. We with the energy that we're putting off, we attract things into our lives. And so that's why that happens. So just the opposite can also happen. So if you're ill and you have a dis-ease, a disease within your body, those also are just cells and particles. And I think there is going to be a lot more focus on using the mind as medicine, You can't, I don't believe in just no medicine. I don't believe in just going and living by yourself and just meditating 24 hours a day and then you will be better. Could that happen? Yes, I do believe that. But I do believe also that there is a role for medication. There's a role for cancer treatment. There's a role for hospitals, emergencies, surgeries, because things happen to our body. But
Sure.
I also believe that it's way underrated, the power of our mind to also heal. And I think, and I hope for some of that to be brought into the mainstream medicine. If I were going to think about, if I was going to imagine and do that, it would be brought into the hospital. It would be brought into medical medicine, the piece of it that has to do with thoughts and motivation. I mean, how many times have you seen a patient and you just, like, maybe before open heart, they're getting ready to have surgery and they have the greatest outlook. They are positive. They're not stressed really about it. They've kind of surrendered and let that fear go. And they're really just going. They know whatever outcome is going to do is what it's for, and their family. And they have the greatest mindset. And then you have another patient who is full of fear, full of stress. Their blood pressure is insane because nothing's responding to the medication because it's here. It's the energy of their thoughts and all the negativity that they're putting out just surrounding this one thing that they're going to have to do physically to their body. And they don't do well. They're wimpy. They have so much pain. They can't get up and do the coughing. They don't want to. It hurts. They're scared, fearful. They keep within, like you know them. They're tight. They won't do anything. And then you get the people who don't have any of that. And they can they're soothing themselves. They're soothing with their mind, their body. And do we still give them pain medicine? Yes, we get them up to the chair. They have the same chest tube output. They were on the ventilator the same amount of time. Maybe not. They might have come off the ventilator quicker because they're calmer. And, that is just like a very small example of the power of the mind. And I personally believe that those kind of modalities are not integrated into medical inpatient acute care hospital settings because they work. And so if some of that works, then maybe you don't need as much pain medicine. You weren't on the ventilator as long. You don't have poor outcomes. You don't come back with pneumonia. You don't leave the unit and then have to come back in the unit because you didn't cough, because you have so much pain and you're scared and you won't eat and you're nauseous. I don't believe that's happening.
Do the hospitals benefit from those poor outcomes?
No, but overall, those patients stay in the system.
Yeah.
They continue to need care. They have to go back to the doctor. They have to stay longer. They have to, it always seems like, you would think that those hospitals would want it. They get paid this, and this from the insurance, and you want them out. And there is a press for that to get them out on time so that they don't have to pay for anything over what the insurance is reimbursing. But if you actually cure those people and they never have to come back to the doctor, like, no one's making money there. And it's the only way the system stays open. It's the only way that those hospitals make money is to bring patients in who are sick. So it's really a fine dance between keeping them in the system through the money payment systems, the payer systems, versus keeping them in too long that then now they are losing money on that patient. It's just something I always think about. But I mean, for just patients in general, and I feel like introducing energetics or thought mindset work with patients should be way bigger than it is.
And it
they
should
don't even
be
teach you that in nursing school.
Totally on the front end.
100%.
If you're having an open heart, I mean, that's one of the things I think about with my post-op patients that are listed with PTS or violent wake ups. I do feel like if I had if the PACU nurse had interaction with the patient preoperatively and they recognized your voice, so much of the emergence from anesthetic is the unknown that panics them. And if that relationship was established and this is what I'm going to do, this is how we're going to do it, I want you to do this with me now, practice before we go in, that's a mindfulness thing.
Yeah.
We're getting your mind ready for the other side of this thing you're going through. And I think that it would improve some of those outcomes. I'm going to be your nurse. We're planning this and I'm going to be the one taking care of you. And it's going to be good. We're going to get through this.
Yeah. Prepping the mind. I mean, if you really look at the medical, it's just taking care of the meat sack that the soul resides in. That's it. But yet the soul is in there. Yes. The book.
It's materialism.
It is.
It's reductionist thinking. The process of reductionist thinking that became evidence-based practice is the searching the physical world and reducing it to its empirical form to understand the reality that we're experiencing. And it cultivates this siloed experience. Everything is siloed. Yeah. Because in order to get down to the empirical form, you have to kind of bounce away everything else and when you do that, when you bat everything down around it, it's siloed and it's myopic and it takes the comprehensive being and disregards it. It's just focused on the physical. That's what we're talking about.
Right.
That's what I hear you saying.
Yeah, exactly. And it just continues to perpetuate this separateness between our bodies and our soul or our mind or who we actually are within this physical thing. And if you're only caring for the physical thing and you're not changing the machine that runs it, it'd be like, just band-aiding a car, not really dicking around with the motor much, but changing this and painting it a different color and putting the other tires on or wheels or putting the front bar, you're just tending, to the outs and maybe taking care of the rust. But if you're not really getting down to the very depths of how that car actually runs, then you're always going to have issues. Always.
Now, so take it back to the first thing that I read there about infant mortality and life expectancies in the 1700s. Those people were not wrestling with these things. I mean, there were people that were wrestling with the ideas that led to what we have today. That's why it's the Enlightenment period. But these ideas, these problems that we're having are created by the lack of ultimately accepting the necessary expiration date of DNA. We're wrestling with these questions of suffering and death in this conversation because we have tools and answers. Mm-hmm. They didn't have the tools and answers back then.
Yeah, it just was.
It just was. It was the experience. Everyone suffered and everyone died.
Exactly.
It just was the experience. And now we are in such a privileged state and we don't appreciate it. It's remarkable.
But I think it can be a catalyst to the deeper thinking of okay. Well, so we have all this technology and you can keep your body looking very young. You can keep your body younger than stated age by lots of external technology, things. But yet our soul is constantly wanting and searching for growth and evolution. If you're only worried about the outside of the casing of you and the way that your skin looks and how tight it is around your face and just your heart and your kidneys and the skin on your legs and things like that. You're kind of stunted at your soul growth. And I feel like, like back when the children were dying, there wasn't that. It was just accepted. That's just the way it was. There was no choice.
Yeah.
And it's like now we have a choice, and it just feels like we should be worried. We can continue to improve our body, improve the functions, improve the way that it looks. But what does that even matter if you're not looking at your soul and the evolution and growth within you and who you are and why you are and what the purpose is for your soul to be here while you're here. So it's a little bit scary. If we're always looking at the new technology and the future of the futuristic things, that you can imagine when you're thinking about the future of something, but you leave out the personal side of growth, of evolution, and of your own who you are. I think that, that's where I have fallen. Nah, that's a weird word, but
landed.
Where I have stepped in line since questioning everything. When we have our bottom pit moments, and there may be multiple, from that, that's kind of where I've stepped into. I've stepped out of the external thought process and stopped ignoring who this is. And I've been trying to connect my inner with my outer. And I don't, with using technology, the nanotechnology and some of those things, there are benefits to it, but they're only physical unless you have that connection between your soul and your outer body, because then it will matter. It almost like double matters. It really has meaning versus just, something that could be taken advantage of by someone who has the right code. And maybe that's my way of not being so scared of new things like that. And so if you, kind of if we could allow patients and kind of bring them into thinking about both. So this just popped into my mind. How do you feel about the future of nursing, knowing that all of these new technologies are going to come in, and kind of where you fall in that line of, or pendulum, really, the swing of it?
I do think that there will be massive changes. I think that there's a real possibility. Like, doctors are more and more specialized. I think nurses. I think that they're, could be again, are somewhat still very, very skilled. And the nurses that are, like nurse practitioners, I think nurse practitioners are a good example of this. They're specializing. And I think that the specialization process will grow, and that more than likely there will be automation brought into hospitals. So it will require less and less human workforce. And I think that the home health model will return. I think that there's just no way around that. And that's kind of where I was going with the autonomy thing, that the blockchain nurses will be their own entity, that you'll be licensed and boarded in all the states, and almost like Uber for nurses. Like nurses will be like Uber drivers. Like, they will have their own little business that they contract through different agencies, and they send them where they need them. And, you just get on an app and be like, I want to work this many hours today. I want to see this many patients, and I don't want to do anything else but that.
I think there is something. Remember that podcast you sent me with the gal? She was talking about nursing and staffing, and she had something similar that she started that business. It was her and a guy. She was on his podcast, but that's similar to what she had done. She had provided that autonomy and that nurses should be able to work when they can and where they want. I'll try to look that up.
Yeah. Was that the girl that was
I think you might have even sent an email to her.
Was she the one that was working in Congress or presenting to Congress that the nursing pay model has to be reformed, that we need reimbursements like physicians?
Yes. Yeah.
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 That's what that was. I don't know that she was talking about. I see what you're saying. Yes, that's definitely connected.
Things together, but
no, that's connected. I think that if that changes, if we are able to be reimbursed for the work that we do, because that was her main point, was that we know a bedpan costs 10 cents because nurses are their charge, the expense of a nurse is rolled over into room charges, means that we don't actually know what the cost of nursing is, which means that a bedpan has more identifiable value than me.
Yes.
So if we change that model, if that model of reimbursement is established, if we can figure out the nuances of how, like, what is the cost of a nurse starting an IV? What is the skill of starting an IV worth?
Right.
Or dropping an NG or a Dobhoff or, running wedge pressures. What are all these super high skill tasks that we're doing actually worth? And then we get paid on that versus the hourly pay model. Yeah. Then that sets up the kind of Uber scenario where, we could actually make money doing this.
Yeah, because really right now nurses you're tied to a system. There really isn't anything. I mean, unless you are nurse coaching or you have bought your own business, like an IV therapy business, you're always under someone. You're under the direction of someone, you're under the guidelines of someone, you're under the, policies and procedures and staffing and the model and who they're going to tell you when to work and when not, and what holiday you got to work and what holiday, it would be a dream for nurses to be able to work like a physician does. Physicians have their own thing.
That's kind of that. So that's kind of where, like, the automation piece, like, I don't know how the automation is going to happen. I don't know how the Jetson type robot makes its way into the hospital. And I mean, to be perfectly honest, that creeps me out. It creeps me out to see robots.
Yeah.
They're weird. I mean, it's weird, but that, if that's the, where the future is going, whatever. I have no agency over that.
Yeah.
We have no agency over that.
And so how do we move through what we know is coming? We know change like that is coming. We know things and technologies and things are moving. And so how do you move through that and stay not scared?
I mean, it is like you have to have a footing in a belief system, I think, is one foundation. I think another is really developing the internal structures and systems to allow you to have agency in your own life. Like, that's the personal accountability bit, that, okay, this person over here is saying this, and you have all these opinions. When there's multiple opinions that inform a decision, at some point you have to collapse all of those systems and just go within to find the answer forward. Yeah. And I think that is a skill or a muscle that is built. I don't think that is just something that happens. I think that we are particularly gifted with that skill because of our experience of managing critical situations that, you can't listen to anyone else. Like when you're running the show, you can't be open to Susie Q's opinion over here. Like,
Right.
Get on out. I'm doing this thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, different if you're asking a question and then receiving an answer, but when you're in there and
when you're in this,
you have it, you know what's going on. It's very intuitive, and it really doesn't matter what other people say. Sometimes they think it might, but it does. It actually doesn't.
Yeah. You have to shut off that input. The willingness to receive input has to be just severed because you have to navigate this path because you can see it. So that, I think, is pretty critical. I think that's a navigational tool, I would say. We have to become our own navigators. And then the other side of all of this is that we have to have the freedom to be able to choose to take these things up. Not everybody is wrestling with the things that you and I are wrestling with.
That is true.
And to say that everyone should is not necessarily.
No,
not
and
necessarily.
I think so. If you're like, because I never did. I was just nursing, and you just go with the flow, and I didn't think much outside of just what was going on. And it wasn't until I started feeling and suffering from the consequences of not thinking about that you then decide to do something. And so
then you gotta change.
It is a practice, and you have to start practicing doing something different. It's almost like you get an awareness at some point, however that's brought to you. And then you're like, what is this really all even? What?
Yeah.
What is this even all for? What are we doing? So you do kind of get that like, oh, wow. Okay, wait. And it's just a shift in perspective. Is it? You shift it.
Well, it's almost like listening to you talk, everyone is concerned about AI becoming self-aware. Like what I'm hearing you say is you became self-aware. Like maybe
Really?
worrying about AI becoming self-aware is like not even the question. How about we?
Or is
how
it
do
just
we?
a reflection?
How do we as a collective people become self-aware?
Right. And maybe AI is just a reflection of what is starting to happen with people, with humans. They're starting to take a different perspective. They're starting to become more aware of what could be going on underneath, what's going on within, where that connection is. We're not taught that connection. We're not taught the connection between our soul and our body. They don't teach it. They don't teach that. And if anything, if you grew up in church, you could have been taught the exact opposite. Don't touch your body. Don't let anybody else touch your body. You're going to hell. It was with the body, it's sin. That was me.
Oh,
but
yeah.
Just another perpetuation of body disconnect, because when you come and you're connected with who you are in the body you're in here now, things look so much different.
Yeah.
Because now you're the agent. I am the agent of who I am.
Yes.
I'm not, no one's telling me what to do, who to be, because that's what it was. I was told, you will be nice, you will be quiet. You don't talk to me like that. You will not be disrespectful. You will go to college. You will make money. You will clock in at a job. You will do that. It's all just that. But once you're able to take ownership, and sometimes it's yucky when you have to look at where you are. When I quit drinking, that was one of the first times that and that was 7 years ago. And I am still learning how to be the agent of my body and my life. And
I don't think that stops.
I don't either. Yeah. It doesn't. So it's just one kind of progression situation after another. But one of the very first ones when I really had to be like, is to look at my drinking self and like, what was what was that about? Why? Why? What were you doing? And so it's like unraveling so that you can make sense of it and not berating yourself, not judging yourself, not focusing on all the external things that made you that way, because none of that matters. It really is just where you are. And if you can stop and see right where you are current now, that's where then you can change your future and where you're going. If you're constantly looking at the back of the bus, you're never going to know where you're going.
You're right.
We hope you've enjoyed this week's episode.
Remember, the conversation doesn't end here.
Keep the dialogue going by connecting with us on social media posted in the links below, or by visiting our website.
Together, let's continue to redefine nursing and shape a brighter future for those we care for. Until next time, take care, stay curious, and keep nurturing those connections.
And don't forget to be kind to yourself.